My name's Sam Durkin, and today I'm going to be showing you how to paint a picture of some poppies in a field. As you see, I've already put on a base coat on the canvas. I've worked from a sort of very light area here at the back to a slightly darker area here at the bottom. As we go through the painting, this area here will get darker because this is where the shadows underneath the poppies are going to be. And as we move back towards here, this is probably going to get slightly lighter. But it's important at the beginning of a painting to put a base coat on so that you know what, so you've got somewhere to move from. Just starting with a white canvas is generally a very bad idea. Partly because it's very important to make sure that we get a sort of a consistent feeling through the whole painting, and this painting's base colour, if we were to take sort of the whole colours together, would come out as this green. Obviously we're going to have some very bright reds in here because the poppies are going to really pop out of this green, and that's the other reason for putting this green on here, is because we want those reds to really jump out at us and really make some really exciting motions on the canvas. It's going to be semi-abstract, but also at the end of it you're going to really see a poppy field, but there will be a sort of semi-abstract feel to it. So I'm going to mix up some paint now, and then we'll start on the painting. I've been covering the canvas with a slightly darker shade down the bottom here and just sort of merging in, and right now I'm just going over these areas and get them a little bit muddy, just to get in some of the general dark areas underneath where the daisies are. And this is a mixture of the three primaries together, mostly focusing to get the green end of the spectrum, but as you see there's a little bit of brown in here, a little bit of blue. It's all in there just to merge in, and these darker areas up here, these essentially will be, these will be the sort of central points of some of the poppies later on, probably. See, I'm not being too worried about, I don't want it to be too green, so bring some other colours in there too. This is all just to merge in to get a sort of general dark area down here at the bottom, underneath the poppy base. Now what I'm going to do later as we work through the painting, and you'll see how this works, and this will be to go over these darker areas with much lighter areas to get the sort of stems of some of the poppies that are catching the light. But right now, just filling in the areas I think will be dark. So let's get maybe a little stem coming up there, that kind of thing. There we are. We don't want these to be too harsh right now. So let's just get them slightly muddy and just get that sort of that foundation there. Right. This essentially is the foundation of our canvas, okay? I've given some areas where we might put some poppies in, so there's probably going to be one here because that's a central piece there, and then another one here, and one maybe here and here, something like that. Probably one there. That looks like a good central part of a poppy. And then we'll build up, bring in a sort of very, very bright reds that will really jump out and zing off of the green background and give us a real strong feel to the painting. But I'm going to leave that to dry for a moment, and then we'll come back and maybe I'll put some other red in so we get some idea of what's going on. Okay, as you see, I'm just putting the reds for where the poppies are generally going to be in right now. And I think you'll agree we've got already a very, very strong structure of the painting. Okay, as you see, what we've done is we put the reds into some general areas of the canvas here, just to give us a structure to work from, as I was saying before. And I think you'll agree that already it's starting to look a lot more like a field of poppies Obviously there's quite a lot of work still left to do, and I guess we could leave it at this, but I feel that we can work it a little bit more and make it feel a lot more finished than this. Just getting the general areas for where the poppies should be is obviously the most important thing. And as you see, what we worked on is there's some large ones in the foreground here, and we've got some ones sort of that are lower down here as well, just to break up the picture, and throw just a few sort of poppies maybe in here that might be opening up, just to break in and get some shape there. As you see, we've got sort of a border where the sort of the poppy field ends, and obviously as poppies get as we look into the distance, the poppies relatively appear to get closer together and smaller. So we've got this kind of effect here where I'm just going to use slightly watered down red here, just to give that effect, as we're sort of looking into sort of almost a slightly out of focus thing here. So we're not trying to paint individual poppies up here, because at this point we're sort of going to lose it, and we'll probably get this to go into sort of a yellowy, hedgerowy type affair right at the top of the painting. But right now, I think you'll agree we've got a very strong feeling of poppies in a field already, and that's the most important thing. Building a good structure to your painting early on really does lend itself to producing a good painting at the end. If we already can see what's going on at this stage in the painting, where if we come in close here, we'll see there's really just sort of some random splodges and lumps and things here. What this is going to produce is a more powerful painting as we get towards the end of it. I'm going to work on this more, because just sort of these are essentially one layer of paint, and we want to make sure that we produce more than one layer of paint always. These reds here, we can still sort of see some of the green through them, because this is like the first layer of paint, and I'm going to want to put more than one layer of paint on, just to make them even zing even further out of this. These areas here around the poppies are also a little bit dull, because the paint is quite uniform. We want to get some more sort of feel and movement to that, so we're going to paint this a bit later on and maybe break into some of these bits of red here that we've done already, and get that to come along and make it a little bit more solid. Also, because we're using quite watered down paint here near the top, it looks a little bit wishy-washy, and some of the paint, like just there, comes away from the canvas as we paint into it. So if we just put these general areas in here, we'll be able to work further as we go. As you see, we're almost taking some of the paint off now, because it's starting to dry, and adding sort of any kind of watered or wet paint will start to remove the paint from the canvas. So there's only so much we can do here. So I'm going to leave that to dry once more. When we come back, I'm probably working on some of the lighter areas into the canvas. I may even do a second coat of red on some of these major poppies, just to make them jump out even further. Okay, I'll come back in a little while, and we'll see where we've got to. Okay, as you see, we've worked on the painting quite a lot more. Darkened these areas a lot more in here, and sort of taken some of the tone down a little in the background here, and really sort of, I say this is essentially blurred some of the reds into it too, so we get a sort of a more abstract feel with dark areas in here. The next thing we're going to work on is bringing up some of the lightness. Now this area up here at the top, I feel needs to be a little sort of lighter yellow, but we've taken it into sort of an orangey sort of red. So this area here is essentially the horizon, where the poppy field ends here. And the area beyond it, we're going to sort of represent as maybe another field or maybe woodland, just rolling off into the hills in the distance there. So it's going to give us that feel of depth. These poppies obviously are quite strong, but I'm going to paint them a little bit more later on, bring out that red vibrancy even more, so they really pop off of the canvas towards us. But like I said, the next thing to do is to put in some of the lighter areas that we're going to go over this darkness here to give us a feeling of the stems of some of the plants. Okay, that's essentially the same as working on the painting before, and I'll come back after I've done that. I normally would show you the whole painting process if I could, but this painting's taken maybe 4 days to get to this stage as it is. It's an awful lot of wait for the paint to dry, leaving the layers on and then coming on again. So I'll show you some of it, but obviously I can't show you the whole thing because nobody really wants to watch a 17-hour painting video. Right, let's get on with it. We'll see you in the next stage. Okay, welcome back. Right, as you see, right on this side of the painting, I've sort of left it as the sort of the construction lines you can see what I've been working on. So I put in lots of sort of the lighter colours here, and as you go across here, you see what I'm working towards, which is to get those lines in and then mix in some of the darker colours too. Now I'm going to be doing some more of that over here too. Plus I'm going to make some of these a little bit stronger. Up here, I've been working again, so we've mixed in sort of a very bluey green sort of colour here, which I've also mixed slightly with red, and I've taken red as well and mixed it in, and essentially mixed it on the canvas, so we're getting this kind of like almost merging in of the sort of the poppies plus the gaps between the poppies, so we get this kind of feeling that they're all sort of coming together. At the top we put in the yellow, which I used some of this yellow from down here, but obviously I warmed it up a little bit with some red and painted that in here, so we get this kind of nice horizon sort of feeling along the background here. I may do a little bit more on that later, but I quite like that how it is. Essentially, the next step to do is to put some more of these highlights in here, and then go over them again with the dark lines, and probably do that some more here too, so we get lots of angles, but keep it very abstract feeling. So if we come in here, as you see, what we've got here is extraordinarily abstract in many ways. We've got just paint splodges, just to give an impression of what's going on here. Now, on a larger scale painting, quite often in the distance we'll have that done with the small parts of the brush, just give an impression of what's going on. But the idea here for a sort of an abstract realist piece is to let that happen on a sort of a larger scale, because we only need to step away from the canvas to see these things and to make our brains make up the images for us. So these straight up lines here and the sort of the lines across and everything like this gives us an impression, because we know that these are poppies. Our brain is telling us quite clearly that they're poppies. So all of these little splodges and these little marks are all coming together in our own minds to give us this impression that there's light between the gaps, and that these dark areas must be grasses in between, because that's what our brain tells us that they are. But also at the same time, if you look nice and closely, you'll also see that they're not. They're quite clearly just paint splodges, and I think that gives a real nice feel to a painting. Okay, so as I say, the next step is to paint some more over here. Get this working in here, probably paint up here a little bit more, and the stage after that will be to really strengthen these reds up, really make them nice and powerful. I mean, they're already pretty good, but we'll just fill in the gaps here where they need to be, just bring it out, and then we'll step back from the painting for a while. I usually like to leave it for a day, watch it for a while, and then sort of see what needs to be done. Okay. Okay, as you see, we've worked all across here now, really bringing some kind of vibrant colours in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm breaking in to a lot of these shapes now, just to emphasise some of the abstract nature of them all. Get some of these dark areas and break into them, because we don't want anything to be too dull or even uniform. So some of these areas here we need to break them out a little bit, just to almost just to merge them in a little bit. So everything gets a little bit fuzzy and worked on there. There we go. At this stage we're using sort of a, see, I actually use quite a large brush. You have to mix the paint on the canvas as we go. Just work in around these areas here. Bring some of these lines in, so there's just almost like this chaos of stems working up, and we put some really bright areas in here where the light might catch certain little bits, just here and there. Some of these come alive with using some very, very primary colours there, just to give us a real exciting edge to it all. We'll bring some colour through there like that, see. Here's the idea of some stems there. And take a step back for a moment and have a look at it. There's almost not enough chaos going on over here now, because we've got these chaotic strokes down here that are really feeding and give us that feel of stems and grasses and things. Got to be careful, of course, when we're working at this level, because we can end up muddying it if we're not careful, and it's not really what we want to do. We want to make sure it's nice and bright. Okay. That bit down there is a little bit dull, so let's bring in some colour there. And then just to touch it all off, really just a few little merging strokes, just to make us just be daring. And there we are. Right, okay, well, we'll leave that to dry for a bit, and then we'll come back and we'll work more strongly on the red colours. Okay? Okay, and I think we've finally finished now. I'm really very happy with it. We've got lots of colour, movement and power in the painting. The poppies really do pop out of this like they ought to. As you see, I've lightened up some of the tops and some of the areas of the poppy petals, just to give us a sort of a feeling that they're really coming out at us and giving us almost a three-dimensional feeling. All of the grasses and the stems are extraordinarily abstract. And when we come into this, it's just a mess of lines and shapes, but they all really gather together, and we just get an impression of the stems just bursting out at us here. And I've echoed that slightly into the background here with these very light touches of yellows that just give us an idea of that and this are the same thing. So the pattern sort of repeats through the whole piece as we go backwards into it. And I've brought some of this lighter sort of aqua sort of almost grey blue colours, and I brought them slightly down into here too to give us a feeling that happens all the way through the painting. And even if we were to move back, these would just disappear off into the distance. So I'm really very proud of that. I feel that's a very powerful painting. None of the poppies are really extraordinarily realistic, and yet when we look at it, we see a very realistic painting of poppies. We really get that impression, and it's all to do with our own minds and how it works. As you see, I've sort of dulled down the horizon here just a little bit and brought some of the blues into it, and maybe a little bit of yellows and mixed them in, bits of greens, and just sort of brought that in so we get this broken up horizon that feels like it's out of focus, because I feel before I'd made it a little bit too strong and it was jumping off the canvas, which was giving us a weird impression that the background was closer than the foreground. So breaking into that has helped that a lot. It's very important when working on a sort of perspective type painting that we think about the background and keep it out of focus in some way, so that it's broken up and our eyes do most of the work here. And then as we come closer down into the foreground, lines and shapes have to be more edgy, because we get to focus on things that are closer to us than we do further away. So although these are still very abstract shapes, they are slightly more closer together, defined, edgy, and lines and shapes that just pop out at us. Same as the edges of the flowers. We can all see those edges of the flowers, but as they go off into the distance, they become a little bit more broken up. Anyway, if you like my painting demonstration, please do give it a thumbs up and like it, share it with your friends, and also subscribe to my channel. And there'll be more painting demonstrations in the future. Thank you very much.